Welcome to the KidHash podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the KidHash podcast. I'm here with my co-host Gypsy-J.
What's up?
Appreciate you guys tuning in for episode 9.
Wow.
Can you believe that? Yeah, episode 9. Today we're actually working with a new setup with the microphones. Got them a little closer, so hopefully the audio quality is better. We're kind of making small adjustments each episode, trying to make it a little better, and hopefully by the next episode we'll have enough that I'll feel comfortable putting them all up on iTunes. So that'll be cool. Today, in cannabis news, I actually have a couple of articles here that I had ready. The first one I thought was pretty funny, actually. The pot shops in Colorado, they did $126 million in the month after Trump was inaugurated.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's insane.
Well, you know, it's because everybody's stockpiling their shit. They're buying what they can and putting it in the freezer because they're afraid things are going to go south. But, you know, what's weird is I read an article the other day where, like, all the companies and anything that you could possibly invest in related to cannabis is spiking. There's so much overflow. They have so many new products that they want to put out on the market. They've got so many new systems they want to put in place. Companies are just blowing up around this thing. So, like, everything is to the positive except for the government. It's so weird, the contrast.
Well, that makes me wish I had a pot shop.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, even in, like Colorado, they got lucky because it was kind of hands-off when they were first trying out their recreational. So they kind of had the best of it. But California, you know, they tried to do legal for a while there before anybody else. And, like, they tried doing it with the medical system. But DEA agents just kept rolling up and shutting them down randomly. And, like, there was, I think it was in Super High Me with Doug Benson. They touched on a story like that where this DEA agent just, you know, felt like super cop and started cracking down on all these pot shops, even though they were specifically told to lay off. So it's so strange when, like, there's a pseudo rogue cop. Like, that's something you see a movie about. It's so weird. This dude just went in and started busting up pot shops.
That's crazy.
And also in Colorado, on 4/20, the Church of Cannabis will open for anybody looking to kind of expand themselves through the use of cannabis.
That actually sounds really interesting.
Yeah, well, you know, substances kind of have root in almost every religion. So, I mean, there's been a pretty solid argument for the sacramental herb being like the burning bush that Moses spoke to. Some people speculate that that was actually cannabis. Other people speculate that there's a strain of plant. It's a bush. It's an actual bush, but it's got a high concentration of DMT.
Ooh.
So, and it's native to the region, you know, the Middle East and all that. There's I forget what the name of the plant is, but it's really high in DMT, which is pretty harmless unless it's combusted, which, you know, if it was a burning bush.
Yeah.
So there's speculation that maybe the bush had caught fire, or maybe he lit the fire and it just, by happenstance, you know, he got high on DMT and just had a mind-exploding trip.
It'd be crazy.
Which doesn't necessarily make it untrue. You know, just because you have to use a substance to achieve something doesn't, you know, lessen that achievement. I mean, it totally could have been a spiritual, religious experience. Totally could have been. Just because it had to do with the plant doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. So, anybody looking to... Anyways, back to my point. Anybody looking to expand themselves spiritually, emotionally, anything like that through the use of cannabis, you know, you can go to the Church of Cannabis in Denver. Actually, myself, I've had a pretty revelatory week. As a matter of fact, I kind of snapped into it because of you.
It's only Wednesday.
Yeah, I know. But you flipped a switch, like you rearranged some stuff in our studio, and it threw me off. And you know me, I don't like change. I really don't, especially when I'm not expecting it.
Mhm.
I can't prepare myself mentally.
And I'm the opposite. I like to you know, rearrange stuff every now and then, get a mix up going.
Well, yeah, and you pointed that out to me. You said that that's kind of how you maintain your positivity, which, that's kind of the whole reason that I started this podcast, is because I needed something to maintain my level of positivity, something to check myself with. And, when you said it that way, and it's just like it clicked in my head. So it kind of eased me down off of it. Like, I was still uncomfortable with the changes, but I let it go because there was a bigger point to it for you. And, that makes a huge difference. And I had a second experience when I was at work where, like, when you're doing a job where you have to interact with customers, it, like, you have to be positive, even if you're faking it.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to give off the illusion that you're happy, even if you're not, and that you want to engage with the customer, even if you don't. But I kind of had a moment where I wasn't really into the workday, and then there just a total stranger came in. He was a perfectly, genuinely nice guy, from what I could tell, and it wasn't a negative experience. And all I did, the simple act of referring to this guy as buddy, it's like that positive word kind of flips switches in your brain. Just referring to him that way, it kind of made the experience a little lighter for me. Made it a little easier to be positive with it. So it told me, it showed me how big of a difference even our vocabulary is. Just the act of using positive words can instill some positivity, even if it's just a little bit. So it was kind of, I mean, yeah, it's only Wednesday, but that's kind of a big revelation.
That's good.
And it's something I really wanted to bring up on here, because try it. I'm telling you, if you just use more positive vocabulary when you're talking to people, and it'll actually make you feel more positive. They did a study kind of similar to that, where they asked people to smile, and the very act of smiling lit up synapses in their brain and made them feel happier after a while. You maintain that air, kind of fake it till you make it thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it really works.
Yeah, there was I was walking around this camp. It was like a festival, like a music festival type thing. And I was walking, and I walked past this lady, and she was like, "Hey, you dropped something." And I looked back, and I'm looking on the ground and everything. She's like, "Your smile." And of course I smiled instantly, and I'm just like, oh man. Apparently I looked, bummed out. I should smile more.
Well, but she's lucky that you are who you are, though, because you said it to the wrong person, and they're just gonna get pissy at you.
It was a church festival.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's kind of a safe space.
Yeah, it was a pretty safe space.
Well, that's cool. I mean, but yeah, I mean, people like to know that other people are interested, and so kind of like that, she said something about your smile, and that kind of made you notice that she took an interest, and that made you smile. These little things really do stack up in our day. So I hope everybody listening kind of remembers that as you go through your day. These little things can totally change the bigger scope of the outcome,
or even just your day. Like, every day I start off with, I don't even get out of bed yet. I open up my phone or my tablet, and I watch funny videos.
That's cool.
And it cracks me up. It really helps. It's one of the things, I was reading this article, it really helps if you have anxiety or agoraphobia. You wake up, you don't think negative, you just instantly surround yourself with comedy. They suggest an hour of comedy, and then an hour of something that makes you feel really well, and it'll completely change your outlook on the day.
Oh yeah.
And it'll help you a lot with not worrying about things.
Yeah, and comedy, I'm glad you brought that up. Comedy is a great tool for anybody with depression, or even if you just kind of have a busy life and you don't get a lot of time to expand. Just listen to stand-up comedy or something like that when you're driving or whatever, because if you listen to different comedians, they touch on various topics, like a huge amount of topics, and they come at it from all kinds of different perspectives and help you find the funny. So that kind of does two things. It kind of expands your, horizons as far as your interests go. Maybe you'll hear something and you'll want to look into it. Or just the very act of making you laugh at something from a different perspective.
Yeah,
that makes a huge difference.
Watch Impractical Jokers, and I'm sure you'll be rolling.
Yeah, I love it when they find people that are just like totally confused, and they have no idea what's going on, and it's just hilarious to see how their day is affected.
I love the balloon thing.
Oh, the one where they have to go into the store and like clip balloons onto
Yes.
people? Yeah, that one's hilarious, especially when somebody like gets in on it.
That was so funny.
Okay.
All jokes aside.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll never put jokes aside. I never put jokes aside.
Okay.
I'm a regular real life Chandler.
Oh, hold on. I just want to tell some people about my day. Because I've had a really productive day.
Well, get to it.
Okay. I mean, like everybody knows, or if you're just tuning in, I have serious kidney problems. So for about like 3 or 4 months, I was laid up on the couch, not able to do much, just, watching TV, being in pain as the days passed me by. Yeah, it sucked. But like yesterday and today, not the only days, but these are the ones that I noticed the most. What I do yesterday, I got up early. I went to my mom's studio. We're kind of in the, we're in the process of rearranging it, cleaning it, all that crap. And then I came back home and I did a bunch of Easter stuff. And then I went outside and did yard work for about 3 hours. And it really hurt my kidney and it really hurt my shoulder. But I'm happy that I accomplished something.
Yeah, the very act of doing something can kind of uplift your spirits.
Yeah, like, I feel so happy that I accomplished so much in a day. And even though I was in pain, I put heat on it and I woke up fine. But today I did the same thing, but kind of even more. I cleaned up the yard again in a different way. I shaved, cut my puppy's hair.
Yeah, shaved, it makes it sound like you just like took a razor and like made him bald.
No.
Poor puppy.
It takes about 2 hours for each dog. So I spent 4 hours cutting their hair, and then I gave them all baths. And we have 4 dogs, so yeah, this was a while. It took like an hour to give them a bath because they're so crazy. And then I don't even know what else have I done. I don't know. It's just accomplishing so much makes you feel so good at the same time. Like it feels like you don't have enough hours in the day, and then you're just like, wow, I got a lot done. And I'm just so proud of myself, and I just had to let people know.
No, you should be proud, and everybody should take pride in those. Like you said, there's only so many hours in the day, and people feel overwhelmed. But when you take it like one task at a time, and then at the end of your day, you kind of take stock of what you've achieved. I mean, that's a real moment to be proud of yourself, because I don't care if you did 10 things or one thing. You did something today. You made the day matter for some reason. And you should take pride in that.
I do. And I cleaned the entire house.
Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty good. Anybody listening that has any kind of problem, I found that cleaning the area that you reside in the most makes a huge difference. When you get those little things in order, it makes you feel like you get everything in order.
That's exactly how I feel. Like I have to be in a clean environment. Like even if there's clutter, it has to be like organized clutter.
Well, but I've noticed a correlation there. Like people that tend to have their living space in order, their lives tend to be more in order. And then you look at people that just have like hoarders, people that have just shit piled everywhere and just taking up everything, and there's just grossness under this and that. Those people are themselves a mess. Like their lives are a mess, and like they're depressing people. And that shows everywhere in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're really just trying to turn over a new leaf with anything, just clean something. Spend an hour cleaning something, or a half hour even.
Or even rearrange your living room.
Yeah,
just change it up.
Because doing the activity, it's kind of mundane, monotonous activity, cleaning. You don't need to think about what you're cleaning, because we've all cleaned something, and we're all old enough and have enough experience cleaning stuff, or we should at least, that you don't have to think about it. So your mind kind of, even though you're focused on cleaning, your mind starts to wander and do things productively while you're doing while you're cleaning. So you can achieve other things and get order in your life while getting physical order in your surroundings.
Yeah, I live to have things organized.
Well, I mean, it's a great tool. It's its own form of meditation. Any kind of monotonous, mundane activity like that, where it's just boring, and you don't necessarily have to focus on that task. You can achieve so much more with your mind, and that helps you get order in the rest of your life. It's an excellent tool.
I used to be way worse when I was a kid. I had serious OCD.
That's such a strange coping mechanism for a kid.
Well, when I was a toddler, I was putting my toys in my toy box after I was done playing with them. Yeah, I was that kid. I didn't even have to be told. I just started putting toys in the toy box, and I flipped over and fell in, and the lid closed on top of me. And my dad was watching the whole thing, just cracking up, and I was crying because I couldn't get out. And I'm just thinking back to little me, oh my gosh, I was probably adorable.
Yeah, well, it's not very often that you see a kid keeping the toys clean.
No, I was the only kid that ever had my bed made and everything was in its place. I don't like messiness. I don't like carelessness.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what messiness indicates. There's a level of carelessness in that. When you see things just strewn about, you're not taking the time to pay attention to your surroundings. You're not paying attention to your environment to some degree.
It drives me insane. I can live with it, but oh my gosh, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and you learn to cope with stuff like that because you can't have control of everything,
Right.
But at the same time, if there are other people in your surroundings on a regular basis and you're constantly the one that has to get over something or fix something, that starts to get tedious.
Yeah.
So, but as I said, you can't control everything, so you got to learn other ways to cope and kind of how to get along.
Yeah, my way of coping would be if I lived with somebody, I'd be seen in the shared headquarters, but I'd mainly spend my time in my room where I knew that it was clean.
Right.
And orderly. That was, I don't know. It's not I didn't like the people that I lived with. It's just, that was my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Well, I think that's why I like cannabis as a coping mechanism for just about anything, because I can be totally stressed out about anything, and it could be driving me up a wall. But, I take seriously one hit. I need to get a one hitter, by the way. I'm sitting here trying to carefully measure just to put a little bit in my bowl, but I need a one hitter. But I just need one hit, and it probably wouldn't even be enough to fill a one hitter. I have gotten my tolerance down to such a dosed, manageable level that I just need that one little hit, and it just totally de-escalates me. And if it's a messy problem that I'm dealing with, I just get de-escalated, glove up, fix it. It's cool. Things move on. If it's somebody that, I'm finding challenging to interact with, that it just brings me down. And then I can start to empathize with that person. Somebody that's a chatterbox and it's just driving you up a wall listening to this person. Well, you kind of de-escalate yourself, and then you're suddenly able to understand, first of all, that this person's probably a chatterbox because nobody wants to chat with them.
Or maybe they're just anxious.
Right. So you start to empathize and understand, and that's huge. When you're able to empathize and understand somebody, it completely takes away the aggression. because you're able to make sense of what's going on, and you can find other ways to deal with that person once you understand them.
You might be a more aggressive person. I never really have problems with anybody.
Well, yeah, right. That's the thing. Like, I'm naturally, and I'm telling you, if anybody listening knew my family, I'm predisposed to be emotionally unstable, aggressive, and frankly unstable in a lot of different ways. So having that way to manage myself, it gives me the ability to look inward and understand other people outward. So it makes a huge difference, which is why I think it's silly to tell somebody, that's a grown-ass adult, that they can't use something that's so useful. I mean, I've used it when I've been sick, and it helps me feel better and cope with the sickness. It just gives you a level of detachment. But at the same time, it can give you a level of empathy and understanding. So it's a very flexible coping mechanism. And I think that's why so many different people find it useful. And, like with the cleaning thing, it's a universal thing, cleaning. Anybody can find something to clean. And that meditative process where you don't really have to focus on one thing, it kind of helps subconsciously and even consciously, but, in a more subtle way, it helps you focus on other issues and get them in order.
Yes. Speaking of cleaning and smoking, do you remember that lady that you interviewed with?
Oh, that old lady that was...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please tell the story.
Okay, so I was down in Florida looking for a job, and there was an ad on Craigslist. And they were basically... This was when Florida was poised to pass the medical marijuana initiative down there. So there was an ad looking for potential bud tenders because they were looking to get a jump on the market as soon as the bill was passed. And I go to interview with this lady, which, first of all, she had me meet her in a parking lot. Which, okay, I suppose this is, an industry in the making, so maybe they don't have an official place of business right now.
Right.
It's currently illegal. Understandable. Well, I meet this lady at a parking lot, and I get into her vehicle, also sketchy, and it's an old lady, like your grandma who would bake cookies and pick you up from school for the day.
Did she have short hair or long hair?
She had short hair.
So she was like super granny.
Yeah, and
that is so weird.
So we sit there and we talk, and she asks about my experience, and then she starts packing a bowl. It had to be like, first of all, it didn't go anywhere because I think that was the year that they didn't pass it. I think they just passed one, didn't they?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think Florida just passed something recently, but this was the year before when it failed, or maybe 2 years before when it failed. But so nothing came of it, but it was certainly the most interesting interview I've ever had. I sat there and got high with a grandma.
And then?
And then it just, I left. I went home.
She said she was going to go home and clean her house.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because you're already doing something meditative and cleaning. And then, cannabis kind of helps elevate that. I have never been more creative than when I'm just sitting there cleaning and a little buzzed. Because it just kind of gets those juices flowing, and you can just connect things that you struggle to connect other times. I mean, seriously, when I was a laundry attendant for a nursing home, that's what I would do. I would go out on my break, I would smoke a bowl, and then I would go in and I'd fold towels.
Smoke a bar.
And I have told entire stories. I should seriously write some of it down, because I told very awesome, complex stories about modern civilization meeting creatures that you normally see in medieval times, like elves and dragons and shit.
That's intense.
In a modern time, and they've been really detailed, complicated stories with character development in my head.
Oh my gosh, you should write crazy kid books, and I could do the art for it.
I mean, I've really considered writing a lot of it down. I mean, I sent I wrote a bit, a couple chapters, probably 5 years ago now. It might have been 4 or 5 years ago now. And
Didn't you do that like a year ago too?
yeah, I've done that a couple times. I just never get the time to focus and like actually separate myself for a few hours from the rest of the world. Because that's the thing.
Yeah,
I
there's
can't
not
just
enough
sit down
time.
and write for a half hour. If I'm going to be writing, I need to sit down and have the day. Like, it needs to be an 8 hour day.
That's how I feel with my art.
Yeah, you got to take the day. Because once you get into that flow state, which, by the way, is like a real thing, like your brain, it kicks into this mode where you're just working at peak performance mentally. And the best way to do that is, again, doing something kind of monotonous, like doing the dishes or folding towels, just getting the juices flowing and freeing up the mind to be free.
Yeah, art is probably my go-to.
Yeah, and
Like,
once you get in that state, you want to keep painting or making whatever
yeah,
you're
and
really
I don't
on.
want to stop. Like in school, whenever I had like an art class, what were our periods? They were like 45 minutes long.
Yeah, yeah.
Like once I like really got into it, I was just like, I was there. I was in the moment, and then the bell would ring, and I'm like, well, shit.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They spend 45 minutes on each subject, and then they fill those 45 minutes with subjects that don't really matter, because like that you don't necessarily need. So I don't know, 45 minutes, that seems short. I think they should structure it more like college. Like Monday is like your math and science day,
Mhm.
and then like Tuesday is your history. And
I think that would be amazing. I think people would learn more and they would retain the knowledge a lot better.
right, because that gives you the chance to get into the flow state where you're really into the material. It gives
Yeah.
the teacher a chance to focus more specifically on something, and it just kind of lets you take advantage of that flow state.
I mean, that's probably why people forget to do homework for a certain class. They have like 9 classes a day.
Right. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't.
And
Why didn't I think about this before? Oh my gosh.
See, this is the kind of shit I think about. Like when I get up at 5:30, this is the kind of shit that like I actually sit and contemplate things.
This is what schools need. Maybe some schools are run like that. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty that are. Our school system is so weird. They shoot for levels of consistency and they're way off.
Well, there's no way that people would have like a 2-hour gym class.
Why not?
I don't know.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, I would.
Like that doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to really make somebody take PE, which you should, every child should be encouraged to do physical activity. And there's no better way. Look, if I'm a fat kid looking to skip out on dodgeball, 45 minutes is not that long for me to fly under the radar, you know? And as a matter of fact, it's more like 35 minutes because you got to go to the locker room and get dressed, and then at the end of the class you got to go back to the locker room and get dressed again.
I don't like
So,
that locker room crap.
It's really more like 30 minutes. That's not a long time for somebody to fly under the radar and not get involved. If it's more like 2 hours or 2.5 hours, you get more exercise. The teacher gets to spend more time with each student that needs the attention, and then you kind of get more time to take advantage. There's nothing but upsides to that. 2.5 hours, that's not a long time. Especially when maybe it's a new game and you got to explain the rules. And then everybody can get it turned in 2.5 hours,
Mhm.
and everybody can, feel involved. And that makes a big difference. There's a lot of kids that, they don't have a good self-esteem because they weren't included, and now they fly under the radar because they're afraid of not being included, and then they're never included. So
Right.
they never grow up with any confidence. They need that attention, and they need to be included.
How many times did you like stare at the clock while you were in a class?
Depends on the class.
Exactly. If there were longer classes, like kids would just learn to dive into it.
Yeah, there'd be no reason to sit there and stare at the clock for 2.5 hours. You'd make the best of the 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I would have loved to have a 2.5-hour art class.
Yeah. And that makes sense for somebody that aspires to be an artist. Why would you not cultivate that? Why would you not give that person that aspires to be the artist, 2.5 hours? Why wouldn't you give them an extended period of time to cultivate that interest?
I wish I could go back to school and have that 2.5-hour
I mean,
class.
seriously, if I was a math and science kid, I had no interest in English. I aced it, and I was great at it, but I didn't have an interest in it, so why would you put me in there?
I do. I love English.
Well, here's the thing. I like writing. I like being creative. I don't like somebody telling me how to be creative.
I didn't like the one teacher we had. She'd be like, read the book and tell me how you interpret it. And then we'd write it down, turn it in, and she'd write, no, that's not it at all.
But they're almost all like that. Almost all English teachers are like that
It's
because
ridiculous.
they don't want you to interpret.
That
They
was the
want-
assignment.
I
Interpret
know.
what you think.
But their job is not to allow you to think like that. Their job is to teach you how to think.
Well, that's ridiculous because everybody thinks something different. Like, if you talk to someone who's reading the same book as you and they tell you, like, they, like, draw a picture with words, you're just like, oh my gosh, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about it, like, in a way different way. And I think it should be like that. That's why people write books. So you can interpret it the way that you want to.
Well,
You
yeah, and
create the
obviously they
scene.
have their own intent. They do have their own intent when they write the book, but you're right. They don't get specific on certain things because it is open to interpretation, much like almost everything in the world. You know, everybody has their own perspective and their own interpretation, but an English teacher's job in high school is not to allow you to make your own assessment. It's to teach you what the proper way to think about it is.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't either. It's ridiculous. It's a total indoctrination process, and they don't know any better because they were also indoctrinated.
Well, on that topic, that reminds me of, like, people that are super opinionated and they let it be known.
Oh, that totally used to be me.
What?
Yeah. I used to, remember in high school, like, if I believed something, it was concrete. That's the way it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But, I mean, when you grow up in an environment where that's the only way to be, that's how people like that are developed. You know, when your role models and the people that you're supposed to look up to act that way, that's the result. So, and it's really rare for somebody like that to shake that loose. Like, I got lucky in a sense because I had to go through, a big transition with you, and, after high school, there was kind of a falling out, and, it's just like, after high school, you have the opportunity to experience people and the working world in a way that you don't get to when you're in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of, I don't want to say it was traumatic, but I can't think of a better word for it because it really jarred me in a lot of ways emotionally and the way I think about things. So I started looking into just, different perspectives, and it started to make me realize that the whole world looks different if you look through a different lens. And everybody has their own lens that they're predetermined to look through based on their genetics and how they're raised. So, that concrete version of me where everything is absolute, that's kind of the lens that I was given as I grew up. And, after I was, graduated, and I was able to just get rid of that lens. And I try not to have a specific lens anymore because it's really hard to recover when you have to change the whole way you view the world. And I think the only way that it works, I think the only way any kind of big transition like that works is if you're more open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the thing that a lot of people get out of, like, cannabis. And, it expands your mind in a lot of ways. And I think everybody should expand their mind in any way that they can. That's why I'm not against things like shrooms. I have an interest in them, but I haven't done them. I probably won't do them, and if I do, it won't be for a very long time. But at the same time, why would you discourage somebody from doing something that could challenge their views on the world, that could totally change their lens?
Exactly. Like, I think that I have a pretty open mind, and, like, just because I'm not going to do something doesn't mean that I'm, like, against it, or I'm going to discourage somebody from doing it. Like, hey, you want to rob a bank, and you think you can get away with it? That's cool. It's not my cup of tea, but
I don't know that it's cool, but
I mean, if you can do it, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think the reality is that somebody is going to do it.
I don't like the type of, well, it's not that I don't like them. The type of people that are very set in their ways.
Usually those are older folks.
Not always.
Not always,
I've met
but usually.
a few younger people up here that are just like, they're very concrete. Like,
that's because their ways have never been challenged effectively.
Like, this person has never tried anything other than alcohol.
Didn't you just quit a job because there was a huge culture clash like that?
It was a very huge culture clash. All the people were, like, I don't know, at least 20 years older. There was this one chick that was like 10 years older. But they were very against, like, they were so against weed. And I don't know why. Like, they were completely, like, verbal about it too. Like, they just kept saying, like, I can't stand people asking, I can't stand smelling it, I can't stand that people do it.
Yeah, see, why would you let something like that bother you?
I know.
Especially when it's so innocuous. And when you can go and buy something far more destructive at the gas station.
I know. It was so weird. And, like, the same person, like, they hadn't tried alcohol until they were of legal age. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's cool to have morals, but that just seems so extreme.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing, like, that doesn't say morals to me. To me, morality has to do with the way that you conduct yourself when dealing with other people or when dealing with situations. You know, being for or against something doesn't necessarily say morals to me. Because to be against something, I mean, that could be pretty immoral,
How
actually.
can you be so against something that you've never tried?
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing, you know, that's actually, I was about to bring that up.
That drives me bananas. Come on. Don't knock it till you've tried it.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why I would never tell somebody that they shouldn't do something that is so clearly destructive like meth. You know, that to me, meth is totally destructive. It's, you know, it eats away at your brain, it eats away at your body.
Your teeth.
Yeah, you know, it's a very destructive drug, but at the same time, I've never done it.
It's not your place to be a witch about it.
Exactly. Who knows? Maybe one time is the perfect amount. Maybe everybody should do meth one time, and their mind will just be at peak performance, and they'll be very open-minded, and they'll be the sweetest person in the world.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Right.
That's why I don't like the judgment people give when they don't know.
Right, and that's actually that's a great segue into the topic that I wanted to touch on 40 minutes into this. We, you know, that's fine. We found a track, we wrote it. So, the culture clash that we were just discussing, it kind of, I don't know the best word, but I guess it permeates, that's the word I'm looking for, permeates. The culture clash that we're discussing, it permeates society everywhere you look, in politics and social situations. You know, we have a real problem right now where the will of the people doesn't necessarily match that of the politicians, because people now, you know, the younger generation now are so much more open-minded than the older generation that is running things. You know, we got a bunch of these old fuckers in office that, you know, want to do things that are just so contradictory to the people that they're governing. You know, like cannabis, for instance. You know, the economy around cannabis is exploding. You know, the legal cannabis business is probably the richest business right now. And I'm including tech in that, by the way. Because tech, as I understand it, most technology doesn't make money. It kind of just breaks even. Because people want free. You know, Twitter.
Yes.
Twitter's free.
Facebook.
But that takes a lot of money to run something like that. So the money that they generate through ads and things like that. That's kind of enough to break even with paying staff and maintaining the hardware and all that. So it's not like it's a huge lucrative business. I mean, it is for the individuals involved, but I don't know. It's I would say cannabis is probably doing better than most technology. And when that's the case, I mean that shows that there's a clear support by the people, and the older generation just doesn't get it. And that's the problems that you run into with this culture clash. As a matter of fact, I was talking to somebody at work the other day, one of my colleagues. They were working on a college assignment, and the article that they were supposed to be referencing in this assignment was discussing Twixters. Have you heard this term before? I hadn't.
I hadn't until you told me.
Yeah, so Twixters are essentially 20-somethings, anybody in the younger 20s. And they were saying in this article that there's a problem where younger people don't want to take that step into adulthood because more people are living with their families.
Is it that they don't want to, or that it's kind of impossible to? Like, have you ever been in an apartment by yourself working?
No.
I have, and
before anybody listening to this assumes that I'm some fucking bum, I've had an apartment. I've just always, lived with somebody.
Right. Okay, so I think I had just turned 19, and I had my own apartment, and I was working a full-time job. I did not get benefits, but I was working a full-time job, and I worked like an hour away from where I lived, and I started work at 7, and I got off at like 6. So I leave at 6, I get home at like 8. That sucks as it is.
That's a long-ass day.
That is a long day, and I was doing that alone.
What were you doing?
Boat detailing.
Oh, that's a physical job, too. That is a long, brutal day.
And it was in the winter, so it was very cold.
Fuck. Fuck that noise.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, I needed to make money. The job that I had before that, I was getting like $80 a week.
Oh yeah, that doesn't fly.
Oh,
That's
no.
not enough.
So I changed over to something that would, it started at 10, I ended up making like 13 an hour. I mean, that might be crap to some people listening, but
Well, 13's no joke. It's not exactly the best that one can do, but 13, you work a steady 40 hours, that can get you, like, what, after taxes, probably like a $400 paycheck.
Ish.
Yeah, that's not bad. It's not great, but it's enough to live fairly comfortably for just yourself.
Well, I did have a dog, Brady. So yeah, after paying rent, utilities, like cell phone, what are the other bills? Netflix, I don't even know all the bills. All my bills, I could barely afford to put food in my cabinets.
Right.
Like, if you looked in my fridge, I had condiments, and that's about it.
Well, but here's the real question. Why is that better? Like,
What?
why would somebody want to be in that situation? I don't understand why so many older, so much of the older generation has a problem with people living at home longer, especially when you're contributing.
They don't get it. They don't get it. Back then, I don't think the inflation was intense as it is today. Like,
well, it depends on what period you're looking at, because we kind of do go through this ebb and flow where things are shitty, and then they get pretty good, and then they get shitty again. So there's kind of this ebb and flow to the economy, to society, to pretty much everything.
I was getting to the other part of that story. My best friend that lived next door to me, she did not work. Her roommate did not work. But they had so many groceries that they were falling off of the counters. The fridge was stocked to the ceiling of the fridge. The cabinets were so full that, I don't know, a family of 20 could go in there and still be hungry. Like, yeah, a family of 20 could go in there and just, like, there'd still be food left over. And it just made me so mad because they didn't work, but they got food stamps. I don't know how they paid rent, but they had all these food stamps, and they had so much food, and I had to eat freaking egg noodles with barbecue sauce, because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I was working. I mean, living by yourself, it gets really depressing. Like, a lot of people might not know that. They might think, oh, cool, I have the freedom to do whatever I want. And yeah, you do, but it does get really depressing. When you sit back and think about it, when you're alone in your dark apartment, you think, am I really just living to pay bills? Because that's all I was doing. I didn't do anything fun. I didn't have the money to do anything fun. I was living to work and pay bills, so I had a place to sleep. Because that's really the only time I was at my apartment, to sleep and take a shower.
Yeah, that's a fair point that you just brought up too. You when you jump straight into things like that, you kind of put yourself in a position where all you're doing is living to work.
I know,
and that's
and
a fucked position to
that
be
is
in.
that is not what I'm here for. Like,
Yeah.
when I was in that state of mind, I was just like, I need to go into the army or the Air Force or the something military, Coast Guard, whatever. And did I really want to do that? No, not exactly, but I felt like I needed a purpose. Detailing boats, making them all pretty and clean just so they go right back in the filthy water was really getting to me. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, but here's the thing. You just said, like you felt like you needed a purpose.
Yeah.
I find I have issue with that statement. A lot of people say stuff like that, like they need a purpose, but it's like, let's assume, like if you take some spiritual entity out of the equation, then there is no purpose. If you assume that, just you being, there is no purpose. And that in itself, to me, is purpose. Like, the lack of purpose is purpose. If you have no purpose, then you can do whatever the fuck you want.
I don't feel like that now.
Well, and that's good, but that's because, and you reach the same conclusion that I'm reaching right now through, your chain of logic with wanting a purpose. But when I had my big formative transition, I felt like, there doesn't need to be a purpose. Like, when you look around, like, there's so much that you could do. That why the fuck would you spend 4 years in college to do this one thing that might not exist in another 4 years?
Phew, that'd be terrible.
Right. So, like, why would you spend so much time on something like that if, like, there might not be a purpose?
That's
Why
true.
wouldn't you just take advantage of everything now?
Yeah, that's really how I feel now.
And that is the purpose, to enjoy it, to have fun. And, if you bring a spiritual entity into the equation, you can still reach that conclusion. Because if there is a spiritual entity, which, I leave that open to interpretation, because there might be something higher, there might not be. I don't necessarily think it's any one specific person's views of that thing, but there might be something. And if there is, why would it put us here to work?
I know. The idea of time and working, it really baffles me. Because obviously there's no way it started that way.
Right.
There's no way people were just like walking the earth trying to work. No, they were just like chilling on their campsites. Their work was, feeding themselves for the day.
Yeah.
Finding a place to camp. And that doesn't seem like a bad life, really.
Well, but here's the thing. And I totally get where you're coming from, and I definitely agree with you to a huge extent. Huge. But were it not for the exchange of goods and economy and the idea of working, we would have no advanced medical care. We wouldn't have almost anything that we do
I
have.
get that.
So it certainly serves a purpose, but that's where it should stop.
I don't encourage anybody to live to work.
Right. Work for its purpose. And then be done with it. Don't get a job where you're locked in every hour of the day, where you have to be on top of your phone just in case. Don't get into that shit.
The people that are, how are they happy? The people that answer, like, in the middle of the night, or, like, if they're, like, an assistant for someplace, doesn't that seem like it'd be absolutely insane?
Well, but to them, that's how they were molded, and that's what I was talking about with the lens. That's the lens that they see the world through, where you have to work to have things, and you have to have things to gain social acceptance. And there's just this weird perspective that they have because they were either A, in very successful families, and they're trying to keep up that, tradition, I suppose, for lack of a better term. But there's also the people that came from nothing, and they're concerned. They're freaked the fuck out that they're going to go back to nothing. And they don't want that to happen.
I don't know. I feel weird because, like, out of my 4 older siblings, they have all gone to college. They have all gone to 4-year colleges. One of them even has multiple degrees. He was in college for like 8 years. But all of them, they have their degrees, and they're doing, well, 3 of them are doing what the degree was, meant for. The other one, my one brother, he's not doing what his degree is all about. He's doing something else. But I'm the only person, like, next in line. I did not go to college. And in a way, I feel like maybe my parents are disappointed that I didn't.
No,
But,
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know. Like, they really pushed it, but like I said, I don't know what I want to do forever, and I don't think I'm going to go to a 4-year college and like it as much as the 4 years takes.
Well, I think all parents are kind of fed this line that they're supposed to encourage schooling, but I think it serves an alternative purpose. I don't think it's necessarily about the schooling. I think it's them trying to instill, and they might not even know this, but I don't think they're consciously aware of it, but I think it serves the greater purpose of encouraging you to go after more. Like, schooling is the most obvious, most readily available and apparent method of going after something higher. So that's the one that everybody pushes. It's the most quote unquote stable way to do that. But I think it's more just about aspiring to do something more than, punch keys on a cash register.
Right.
So I don't think anybody is disappointed necessarily about schooling. I think it's more about the aspiring to better.
Although I think I am the only person out of all of my siblings that I'm the only sibling that has ever had a like general labor, like manual labor, working with your hands, being on your hands and knees, lifting heavy stuff. Like, I'm the only person in my family that's done that. And I have 5 brothers, so that's kind of sad for them.
That is sad,
but
that's nuts.
What?
Like, you're the only one that's had a physical job?
I think that each one of my siblings is way different from the other, but I think I'm really the only one, and I'm not like egotistical or anything, but I'm so different in the sense that I would rather be scooping ice cream in a sunny place, like by the water, than making, $1 million doing like office work or whatever people do these days. I'm more about like the little things in life and spending time with the ones that I love.
Right,
it's just,
right.
You think about all of the people that, they went to college right out of high school, they got a job right out of college, and they're just like doing the same thing day after day after day after day. They live for that one vacation week a year, and they just sit back and they think, like, why am I even doing this? I wish I lived in a fun place where I could do, whatever I want. Like, I was reading this article, I think, 2 years ago. This lady lived in New York. It was snowing outside. She had like some type of businessy job. I don't know what they're all called. Whatever. She had this business job. She was sitting there like contemplating what she wanted to do because she was just so fed up with the snow and fed up with, the business life. Wearing business attire. I hate business attire.
So do I. It's so stuffy and just
so uncomfortable. But I only lasted 3 weeks in a business outfit. I quit.
It makes no sense.
It
Like,
doesn't. Especially if you're in an office. Nobody's going to see you. Wear sweatpants.
well, and it's just silly. Like, everybody knows, hey, you're not comfortable with that. That's not what you wear when you're relaxing.
Exactly.
That's why I have such a big problem with social interactions. There's so much falsehood in it. Like, I know you're not comfortable in what you're wearing. Why are we doing this thing?
Exactly.
Can't we just be two people talking?
Yes. But anyway, this lady's, her screensaver popped up, and it was like a beach. And she was like, like, that was my epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
She packed up, like, she quit her job, packed a suitcase, and bought a one-way ticket to some tropical place. I think it was Hawaii. And she started scooping ice cream for a living. And that just really hits me. Like, I would rather be happy doing, a job that's actually fun. Maybe not exactly, like making $1 million, but I don't think anybody really makes $1 million, but like, I don't know. I would be fine living in like a double wide with my chickens and my garden and working at some local place and just, I don't know, it just seems, I feel like, do I sound like a hippie?
No, no, but look, there's a big movement right now, and, it's interesting that it's happening with the younger generation.
I've always felt this way. That's why I don't think I think this is why I never made a decision. I applied to at least 15 different colleges, and it was
what a waste of time.
And money, because it's like a $50 application fee.
Yeah.
I wasted a lot of money on application fees, but I think that's the true reason that I haven't gone. I mean, I've done the, like, nursing assistant school.
Right. You have some education, it's just not for a degree, it's for a certification.
Yeah, which, is fine. I mean, people always remind me of that when I say I haven't gone to school. They're like, well, you have this, so don't feel,
Well, no, but that does matter, because a certification is just a more focused education. It's a quick breakdown of how to handle this job.
I think that's how college should be. You don't need English and math, and, like, you already did that. You already spent 12 years doing that crap. You don't need it again.
Right. Well, but, again, the school system that we have right now, it doesn't well-round you. Like, before Bush and all that, that might have been true. But now, the system, it's so broken with, like, No Child Left Behind, and they're just, cutting funding to these schools and all that shit. So there's the education isn't solid. So when you're supposed to be becoming a well-rounded individual, they're cutting corners. So it comes up with these jacked, just fucked up, unmotivated individuals that come out of high school because, well, we couldn't leave them behind. No. That kid's a piece of shit. He didn't want to do his assignments. Leave him behind. Fail him.
Okay, speaking of that, there's probably 2 types of twixters, what have you. You've got the unmotivated kids who can't get off their asses, and they just sit on the couch in their parents' basement. Or, you have a kid like me. I'm about to be 23, so I'm not really a kid anymore. I live at home, but it's because I really like my family.
Well, yeah, and there's a goal there. You're saving money, and you're still contributing to the household.
Oh yeah, I contribute a lot.
And I think that's where the breakdown is. Like, the older generation doesn't see that. They only see the lazy people that they feel so much better than, and it makes them feel good to bitch about younger kids, and especially when they can point to almost all of them because they feel more accomplished themselves.
Yeah, that's not the case at all. We've lived with my parents twice. We've lived with your parents twice, and we've always contributed.
Yeah.
I'm neat, like we were talking about earlier, so I clean the crap out of everything.
Well, yeah, and it's not like we had to live with them.
No, we didn't have to.
It just makes it easier for everybody because we can contribute to the household. We can cut down on our bills.
You can spend time with your family.
Right. It's a very beneficial arrangement.
I know. And another thing is, I mean, a lot of parents are happy to help out with their kids.
Well,
like,
and that's only new here. Like in Hispanic culture, that's pretty fucking standard. Like, you might grow up on this, small ranch, and you'll have your own house, but you're all on the same property.
right.
It's a very family-oriented culture. So
Amish.
it's only new here. And it's not even new. It's just only frowned upon really here.
It sucks that it's frowned upon. I mean, my mom would love to help us out until we had, like, not paying rent. I mean, we do help out, but, like, rent is, like, the worst thing. Like, it's literally going nowhere. You are never going to get it back.
Yeah, and it's the biggest bill.
And it drives, oh my gosh, that would drive me insane. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to buy, like, a beat-up trailer for, like, $3,000 so I never have to pay rent again. That was years ago.
Yeah.
But
well, I feel like this issue, much like almost every issue when you boil it down, comes to this point where the people in opposition of it just refuse to separate the different factors. They just want to lump it all together as this one simple thing where, I think that's completely arrogant and ignorant. You need to consider, yes, there are always going to be those lazy people. I sell them beer every day at work. Just these old fuckers will come in that haven't done anything since they were discharged from the military.
I mean, I don't want to be like that. I mean,
well, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you're always going to have those people, but they want to lump the younger generation all together into that group because it's convenient and that's how it looks to an outsider looking in. When you're to a certain age and you're living with your parents still, that becomes, oh, how sad, or, oh, that's pathetic.
A lot of people live with their parents until they're like 30.
Right.
Before they can...
There are different circumstances, and I don't think people want to look at the circumstances as much as put it all in a nice, neat box they can judge.
I know. A lot of people stay home with their parents so they can take care of them. Do people ever think about that? No.
Right. Well, that's because we live in a culture where it's so much easier to criticize somebody than to, and again, back to that whole empathy thing. It's easier to criticize somebody than to empathize with them and see maybe what the possible issues in their life are, or what they're trying to achieve doing the thing that you think is so negative.
I don't think that.
Right.
Other people, yeah.
Right. I'm using you in the general sense. Oh,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So, I think it all boils down to empathy. And, just to wrap this up, cannabis is a great way to achieve that empathy. It really is, So, I guess the takeaway from this is, for you older folks listening, don't judge every younger individual based on what you see. Life is a very complicated thing, and we're all riding the same fucking train to the same stop.
Very fragile.
All right, so yeah, don't
waste your life judging people.
Exactly.
You
don't
judge
be
a
so judgmental. Don't jump at the opportunity to criticize somebody. Take the opportunity to empathize. Take the opportunity to connect. It's big when you empathize with somebody. It changes your whole perspective, and it gives you the opportunity to do it again. It's kind of this contagious thing that you do to yourself when you take the opportunity to connect with somebody. The next time that you try to connect with somebody, it's easier. And I'm discovering this. I'm only 22, and I'm discovering this, more and more every day. And that's the great thing about doing this podcast is it gives me a reason to take notice of that and evaluate my day. That way I can bring something back to this. So I think it's really important, and I'm realizing more and more every day how important it is to connect with people, especially when you find it challenging, and especially when you find it as challenging as I do. Take the time, disconnect from yourself, and try to connect to somebody else. Take that opportunity. And, I felt like this Twixter thing was a big thing that needed brought up, because the younger generation is still trying to find their footing in this ridiculously fast-paced world that doesn't really seem to want to accommodate people trying to find their footing. So, again, getting repetitive here, but empathize. Take a minute take stock, and just stay positive. All right? Stay positive and help other people be positive.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up, but we appreciate you guys tuning in. You can reach out to us on Twitter at KidHash Podcast and at Masterroots at KidHash, and you can find Gypsy-J on Twitter at Gypsy-Joint. All right, so reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Let us know, your opinions on this stuff. Anything that we touch on, reach out to us. Let us know. And anybody that contributes, we'll make sure that we mention it on the next podcast. Give you a little shout out. Maybe get you a little bit of a better following going on.
Get you some swag.
Yeah, get you whatever. You help us, we'll help you, and we can all network and get positive together. All right, so hope you guys enjoy your week. I hope you enjoy your Easter, because we won't be doing another episode until after Easter. But you know what comes after Easter? 420. So, then you can gorge on some leftover ham. All right, so we're going to get out of here, guys. Take it easy. Get lifted. Stay positive.
Later, haters.